first thing I hear when I walk in there is like, and then I had my pants off. Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Cyranex, clocking in with my good friend, That One Weirdo.
Just want you all to know, I've been happily married for 2 years, 1995 and 2007.
Good to know.
Oh, no.
And we have back again, Jess Hart from the Opinionated Lushes Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, hello, that's me.
And I made sure this time that all the audio is recording, because some people might not know, 2 or so months ago, we tried recording an episode about Lake during our Cozy Games month, and my audio didn't record the entire time. So that is just kind of the lost Part-Time Gamers episode.
It was a great stream, though, for those that were there.
Yeah, except no one heard me. So at all.
But look how edgy you were. You did a podcast with no audio. How avant-garde.
Sure.
Meta.
Sure, yeah.
Very meta, yes.
But I made sure all the audio is going this time, so we don't have that problem. And I'm glad to have you back and actually have a show that we'll be able to send out to the masses. So yeah. Oh man, it's been a week.
Yes, it has.
2025.
Yeah. So two
this
things.
Week's been the longest year. It's her.
Yeah, this is the mascot of 2025.
Hang on, let me warm my hands.
Yeah, it is. For the audio listeners, it is a dumpster fire. It's actually a Christmas ornament that my wife got me this past year, which I adore. Also, just because I'm random and the ADHD is kicking in, for anyone's watching the pre-show, yes, I do in fact have a Bluey mug. And I unapologetically watch this show without my kids because it is an awesome show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I do that with SpongeBob.
Yeah.
And I still want Doritos.
Doritos would be great right now. Anyway. Sorry, I have 2 grilled cheese sandwiches staring me in the face for after the show. Which, on that, also, another random tangent, my wife got a bread maker, and it is freaking amazing because it's like automated everything. Like, you don't even have to mix the ingredients. You just put them in a certain order in the right amounts, and it just does all the rest. And it actually makes really good bread. Although the first time...
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's nice big pieces of bread, too. So, anyway. Oh, yeah,
I love what's in that weird kind of basket, but it's cool.
Yeah. I will admit, though, our first time we made a massive miscalculation with the flour because we were going by cups and we were making the mistake of tapping it down. So it was getting way too dense, and the first loaf came out basically a misshapen brick. So we learned my wife actually had a kitchen scale, so we were able to calculate with grams, and it worked ever since then. But anyway, yeah, if you're using a bread maker, I suggest going by grams. It's much more accurate. Anyway, with that,
now you got me hungry. Now you got me thinking grilled cheese and bread and.
I know.
Yeah.
And
what are you doing?
I got a little bit of hot chocolate left in this cup too. But anyway, all right. With that, let's go ahead and get back to work.
No, I want hot chocolate.
All right. So we missed this last week, but it's kind of fortuitous, the game we're talking about. This was originally for our last week of our Choices Matter theme, but it also ties into our next theme, which we'll get into later. But the game we're going to be talking about is called As Dusk Falls, and I cannot count how many times I wrote As Duck Falls while trying to type out this game.
I kept calling it When Dawn Breaks.
Yeah.
Like it was one of my mom's soap operas. Like, I'm watching my stories.
Yeah.
All great titles. All great titles.
But yes.
They work.
As Dusk Falls. And developed by, and I have to do this correct, how it's spelled, Interior/Night. And published by Xbox Game Studios. Sorry, it's in all capitals, so I have to yell it. Obviously, that's what they mean.
It is what it is. It says so.
Yeah, exactly. I have to be accurate. It is $29.99 on Xbox and PlayStation and Windows via Steam, and it is also available on Game Pass PC and console. So if you have either version of Game Pass, PC or console, you can get this on there as well. In fact, that's where I was playing it. And I do have to make one admission. I have it installed. I played it for a little bit. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out on PC, and that has consumed my life ever since. So I have not gotten through a complete playthrough yet, but I have seen most of a gameplay playthrough and have the description up as well. But yeah, this is another Choices Matters game, and I think in the spectrum of like Until Dawn and Detroit Become Human, it's kind of a little bit more of a middle ground between the two, I would say, because it has a lot of the choices involved are basically like who lives and who dies, but there is a little bit more variation to that for the endings, depending on those choices as well. So I think it's a little bit more choices, more variety than Until Dawn, but definitely not as much as Detroit Become Human, which that's a freaking masterpiece. That I don't know how they got that many choices
and I
in
stumbled across that game, like I had said before on the other episode, where that was literally a game where I went, no Earthworm Jim, no, if you're not going to make a new Twisted Metal, don't. What are you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was a game I literally stumbled across, knew nothing about. Made me happy.
Yeah. At some point, I want to go back and actually stream that, and with like certain definitions of what I'm going to do for the characters, so that way I can't go just full Paragon again like I did with the first playthrough. But anyways, different game, different story. Anyway, so first and foremost, I think one of the big things with this game is its art style. You know, that's one of the first kind of present things about it. It has a very unique art style to it, where it almost is like stop motion type animation.
It feels very visual novel.
Yes, that's accurate. Yep. It's
the one thing I got out of it was there was a movie that was done easily 10-15 years back, and it was from Richard Linklater, and he did a version of A Scanner Darkly, which was originally from Philip K. Dick, and it was with Keanu Reeves and Robert Downey Jr. And because of the way they presented it, it's like it kind of takes on visually. It definitely takes on kind of its own beast. This is kind of the case here, where you have the kind of that like weird watercolor stop motion. Yeah. Like you're kind of jarred a little bit, but you're still like, okay, I can look at this for a minute.
Yeah, but I think what else is kind of unique about it is that only applies to the characters.
Right.
Like I'm showing a little bit of gameplay right now, and with the car crash at the beginning of the game, and all the characters are in that like stop motion, like very kind of almost painterly art style. But like the environments, the car that they're in, and everything like that, all of that is full 3D, full motion. Mm-hmm. So it's this very interesting mix of the two different animation styles, and it makes it a very unique experience in that regard. I've never seen anything else similar to this, and I don't know, like I haven't gone into like behind the scenes or anything like that, like why they chose to do this way, but it does make the game very memorable from a visual standpoint.
I wonder if they did it just so they didn't have to animate mouth movements. So
I mean, it could cheaper. It could be something along those lines, where it's just like, yeah, because like on a sidebar, that's actually one of the reasons why Chad Stahelski and why they did all the long shots in the first John Wick movie. Is like they were at first they were kind of trying to play it off. It's like, well, we wanted to have this like, you know, this artistic long shot and everything, where it, you know, it's like a full like minute and a half of action, and it's just like they eventually when they got the second movie out, they went back and said, just like, actually, we just wanted to save money. We were desperate to save money, and it's like, and yep. So
When
I
you have
mean,
limited budget, it forces you to have to be
oh yeah,
creative.
oh yeah,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
and I've actually heard a story on Instagram that like at the last minute before they were able to finish the movie, one of their investors pulled out and they were like $6 million short. And
Yes.
Eva Longoria came in out of nowhere and said, "Here's the rest of the money. Make this movie." And it became
Yep.
one of the
She cut him a
biggest.
check for $6 million without blinking.
Yeah. And like
She
she
was like,
says,
"Do it."
yeah, she says now it's like that was like the best $6 million I've ever spent.
She still gets checked. She's
Yeah.
cashed like $35 million in residuals.
Yeah. I mean,
Good for
it's,
her.
yeah.
Heck yeah.
But
Now I
it's
gotta go
like,
back and watch Desperate Housewives.
yeah, now I need to go back and watch John Wick again. Man, those movies are so
I
good.
mean, what has it been, like an hour and a half? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like,
I think your obsession with it kind of borders mine, because I think I told you not too long ago. The first one was back in the theater for its 10th year anniversary.
oh, really? No, I didn't know
Oh
that.
yes, and I have to say, because I had never seen the first one in the theater. I saw two in the theater right after a breakup. And if you want to get through a breakup better, watch a bunch of people get shot in a movie. You will feel better. And then I watched 3 and 4 in the movies. And 4 was great because that was my first time bringing my son to one. He had seen him on his own, but it was my first time bringing him to that one. And as much as I love 4, all I know is I know he's going to get up the stairs. He doesn't have to fall down 7 times. But having said that, I love those movies so much. But that was my first time I got to see it with my son. And then at a different date, I got to see it with my lady. And yeah, seeing it in the theater, like even it being kind of a low budget, dialed down kind of neo Western, yeah,
Yeah.
it still hits.
Yeah.
Like it's still like, and it's got Ian McShane, Jonathan, you really thought about this, shoot it down to the bone.
Yeah.
Just so good.
All right, and that is the first tangent of this episode.
Yep.
But
I noticed you said first, which means it isn't the only.
I'm sure there will be more. I'm pretty confident of that. But
I'm positive, actually.
so you got the visuals of this, which I think makes it really unique, and it very well could have been just a yeah. It very well could have been a cost saving method, but it does make the game very memorable in that sense. Something else that is really good about this game is the fact that you can be played multiplayer. So you can have multiple people playing through the same story, and when a choice comes up, each of them can choose what choice they want to go to. The majority, that's what gets chosen. And if there's ever a tie between multiple choices, it just picks them randomly. And I do believe that there's a Twitch integration in this as well. And actually,
You should know this, Sean.
yes, well, my brain is fuzzy most of the time. So, but yeah, in fact, one of the reasons, Jess has played this game, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her back onto this, because we've had a sort of this is one of the first streams I've watched of yours, and was you playing through this, and there's a segment in there relatively early on in the game where one of the main characters is cleaning up his apartment and everything, and he has a couple options like cleaning the dishes or fixing the air conditioner, and there was one option that was just make dessert, and I was trying to just throw off all of Jess's choices by just make dessert. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Make the dessert. And that's become a thing between us ever since then.
Option 3.
Yes.
Make dessert. Anytime there's a choice in any game ever, it's option 3, make dessert. Or life.
John Wick 5. John Wick makes dessert.
But he has to kill like 14 people in a grocery store to get the eggs.
At the ice cream shop.
But so I still love that little inside joke with us. And the funny thing is, like, I remember on that stream, so part of the gameplay is kind of, there's puzzles and there's quick time events and everything. I remember when you finally did end up making that dessert, you missed the quick time event and botched it.
Yeah, I got divorced to that game.
Yeah. Oh, so I still think that's hilarious. But yeah, this to get into kind of the story of this game. You're following. It's the story between these two different families, the Walkers and the Holts. And most of this takes place in Arizona, in Arizona. At least the first chapter takes place. First book takes place in Two Rock, Arizona, and it's in the late '90s. The Walker family is on a road trip driving out to St. Louis, Missouri, because Vince was recently fired from his job because he was an aircraft engineer, and there was an issue with one of the planes or something like that he was supposedly in charge of, and they blame him for the deaths that happened because of it, which is BS and everything. And that's actually one of the choices you can make later on.
Timely. It's very,
Yeah.
very timely. Like, ahead of its time, even.
Yeah. But yeah, eventually you do have the choice of like either taking the blame and taking a payout from the company, but then you can never work in aeronautics ever again, or you can sue them and try to deal with the consequences of that. So it's one of the choices later on. But what happens while you're on this road, like we were actually watching from the video clip, you get in a car accident. Someone runs into you on the road, and you're forced to stop at this motel for the night. So they're doing their stuff there with Vince's wife. What's his wife's name? Why is it not here?
Her, Michelle? Michelle Walker?
Yeah, why does it not show in here? Oh, yes. Yeah, we'll just go with that.
I have the names up.
Okay.
I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm looking at the wiki right now, but it's like I cannot find her.
You're on the
White
are you on the
Walker.
Wikipedia?
It's literally the next name in the sentence.
Oh,
I'm just blind. That's the problem. It literally says Vince, his wife Michelle. For whatever reason, I thought that was the same person.
He mentioned John Wick, and we're like, screw.
Oh, not enough caffeine in the world. But yeah, Vince, Michelle, their daughter Zoe, and their father Jim are all on this trip, and then it very rapidly switches between them and the three Holt brothers, Tyler, Dale, and Jay, and you control Jay in this situation, and it's like they rob this house, the police officer that lives in that house comes in early, so they have to book it out of there. They end up going to the same motel and hold the Walker family hostage and the other people in the motel. And yeah, it gets pretty intense because right off the bat, once you get into this hostage situation, there's a good chance of a lot of people dying almost right away.
yes.
Yeah. So there's one character that dies for sure, no matter what choices you make in the game. Dale Holt ends up getting killed. Either he gets hit by a sniper outside, or he gets killed by a police officer that raids the motel later on. But yeah, he's the only one that's guaranteed to die. So everyone else can be saved if you make the right choices, you get the QTEs and everything like that. But eventually you find out kind of what's going on. The sheriff has this black book with all of his illegal dealings in it that has been inadvertently stolen by the Holts, and he wants it back. And that's his whole motivation for being so aggressive in this situation, to make sure he can get that back. And there's Jess, you probably know the story better than I do because I'm just reading off the wiki. But I mean, it definitely goes places.
Well, the big part about this is, like, for me personally, is like the time jumps.
Yeah.
So you get to see like Zoe in the future and how she deals with whatever trauma you end up creating for her
Yeah.
at that moment. And then you also see like how the Holtz like how the Holtz led up there, like how they
Yeah.
got there and like the trauma they went through with like their father
Ugh.
and all that kind of stuff, especially once their mom gets involved, adds some history there. So it's just like the fact it goes all over the place and you're kind of building the past, present, and future to create your own kind of how the story goes is kind of like really cool in my opinion versus some things like some other choice based games like Until Dawn and stuff. You may start in the past, do a little thing, but you're pretty much in the present the whole time.
Yeah, there might be.
Like it's
Yeah, like with Until Dawn, there was some kind of coinciding chapters there, but they're still separate enough, and then they kind of can
it's
join
still
in
the present. They're just
Yeah.
separate things. It's not like you're seeing Zoe as in college,
Yeah.
and how she's dealing with whether her mom died or not.
Yeah.
Like
So-
have her parents divorced, like what's going on,
Yeah. And that is another thing that's actually pretty impressive about this game is the fact that they do make those time jumps, but it still seems to match, still seems to work in the grand scheme of things. Because like when you're starting the game, prior to them taking this road trip, Vince finds out that his wife is having an affair. Oh, and then you have to, but that doesn't come up until like after they already reveal that. So they
and then like how you reacted to that flashback scene of the affair then affects how you're acting in the present.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
she'll be like, oh, I know you forgave me, but I still feel, and that kind of stuff, or whether you didn't forgive her, that then affects the trip as well.
Yeah. Oh, but like there's I just the amount of mapping and like coordinating all of these little threads together to make it so that past threads aren't really revealed and like, okay, we can't have this piece of dialogue in this part because the future part we're going to be showing after it. And then it's like having to coordinate all of those different flashbacks because it does it a lot. I mean, right from the start, it's like you have the walkers in the present, and then immediately goes like, this is what happened literally about 6 hours earlier. Or just like however long earlier with the Holtz at the house and everything, and then goes on from there. And then, yeah, it goes into
And
Go ahead.
just a big thing about this, too, is certain choices will give you backstory, but if you don't make those choices, you don't get that backstory.
You don't get
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
You don't get anything. So there's like the grandfather, so he's on the road trip with them because he was an estranged dad. He left, started multiple other families, whatever, came back old, wanted to reconnect with his son, said he's dying of a brain tumor, is moving with them, was just going to live out his last couple years to have a family. Well, it turns out he's lying about that.
Yeah.
But there's only certain choices you can make for him to like tell you that he's lying. Other than that, he'll just keep it to himself.
Well, and even then, it's like the fact that like certain characters can die relatively early on. Like Jim can die early, relatively speaking, from the whole hostage situation, and it's like I think the only character, I could be wrong, but I think the only character that is completely safe from dying is Zoe. I think she's the
Pretty
only
sure,
one.
yeah.
Because like you literally see her like 20 years later in the very beginning of the game. So she's pretty much guaranteed to live no matter what. But everyone else has multiple ways that they can die. Yeah, so it's I already forgot where I was going. But the fact that you can have these characters die early on completely changes like the kind of information that you can get later. So like Jim can die early on, so then obviously you're never going to find out about his brain tumor. Michelle can end up dying during that situation. Like you get a flashback to several years earlier with the Holtz, and the reason that they robbed this place robbed the house in the first place is because their dad has racked up massive amounts of gambling debt. And at one point, depending on so there's a little bit of a trigger warning for this as well, because depending on your choices, I think he's just named Bear, Bear Holt.
Yeah, Bear Holt.
Yeah. The dad in the Holt family, he can commit suicide for the health insurance or the life insurance payments, to try to get themselves out of debt. So just like there's that element. There's just, but the Holt family starts off messed up, and by proxy messes up the Walker family too, just because of all these events that go place.
Trauma breeds trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. This game
So
is like a big Coen Brothers movie to me. Like it really felt like just, hey, they're in trouble. How do they get out of trouble? Oh, no. They don't get out of trouble. They actually get into bigger trouble and bring other people with them in their trouble. And they
Yeah.
get into bigger trouble together. It's a lot of cause and effect. I mean, that was the first thing, like when I played and looked at it, I mean, outside of the visuals, which are pretty arresting, was it reminded me of a lot of the early kind of noir Coen Brothers stuff where it's like one thing with one person and then one thing with the next person, and then it all kind of circles out and brings everybody in. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is disparaging. Like, if you're taking anxiety meds, this game is for you.
That's one. Speaking of that, that one triggering scene. The one thing I really do like about this game is very accessible. It was even nominated for like an accessibility award for like the Game Awards, but it is like that if that scene's triggering to you, you can literally opt out of it and it will just
Yeah.
automatically go with a happier ending and you don't have to see it. And like they have so many, like you can get rid of QTEs if
Yeah.
for some reason you can't do them. You can change subtitle size. You can like there's so many options to
Yeah.
make this game playable for anyone that it's like it's great.
Yeah, and actually I saw that as well, and I changed one of the settings so that for the QTEs where like it makes it so you don't have to rapidly tap anything. It's just a single button press, and it does make it a lot easier. Like another, not just accessibility, but also for streaming as well, especially if you're doing the Twitch integration, they have options to eliminate timers. Oh, so like normally you have like you can adjust the timer setting and everything like that so that it's like, okay, you only got 10 seconds to make a choice. I set it so that because I was also playing it when I had to take care of my kids and everything like that, so I turned off the timers entirely, so I can just sit there and just like, okay, analyze everything. Because also one thing that they do is choices will come in after the initial timer starts. It's like the certain choices will kind of fade in. So if you're too quick, you'll miss those options.
And sometimes you have to like scan for the choices. And so
Yeah.
you can miss the choice if you didn't scan over in like that area, So
Yeah.
sneaky.
Well, and even in that respect, I think they have an option where it just shows you all of the hotspots in the scene.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's cool too. There's a lot of options to it, which is really good. Options are always a good thing. But yeah, you got this whole night with the hostage situation and everything. Eventually, the remaining Holts are plus their mom who went in there has a relationship with the cop and said, okay, I'll go in there and calm them down and everything, and actually goes in there to figure out a plan to get them out of there. And they end up leaving. And then there's this whole relationship with Sharon, who's the mom, and one of the other guys who was, I believe, the owner of or like the custodian or something like that of the motel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maintenance guy.
Yeah. And like one of the options is they can run away with each other and ditch everyone else. Jay ends up getting apart from everyone else, and well, actually, according to this, Jay gets left behind because one of the bits of information that you can get is that Jay isn't actually Sharon's son. He's not technically one of the Holt brothers. He was born of Sharon's sister, who died in childbirth. And so Sharon and Tyler are escaping to Mexico. Jay goes the opposite way and starts trying to get to Canada. And got his whole situation with that, and meeting up with someone named Vanessa, on the way there. And this kind of the weird thing is, after all this is said and done, oh, Zoe's getting letters from Jay from this after this whole thing, and it's like that's just weird to me, like how the
Okay, so during the initial like hostage taking, Jay was the one that was protecting Zoe from his brothers. So
That's
he
true,
ends up
yeah.
hiding with Zoe in another room, trying to like calm her down, keep her away from the brothers who were like beating on her parents and that kind of thing. And during that, when you're playing as Vince, you can go and like you can either just barge in and be like, what are you doing with my daughter? Or you can like listen for a minute and then hear like he's not being weird or anything.
Yeah.
He's like being protective. So I think part of it was like, because he's only like 18 here.
Yeah.
You know, so he's also like a baby. He's a child. He's a
Yeah.
child and he's with another child. And I think it was just like, as she like kind of, you know, depending on how you play, it's like they share that same trauma. So I feel like it's just like that trauma bonding thing. It's like, yes, that night was real.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, there's a couple options between her and Jay that, you know, she can either tell him just like, okay, I forgive you, but please don't ever contact me again. She can turn him into the police and, you know, a couple other things, whatever. Oh, but yeah, so it is kind of interesting. It still has kind of that, like similar to Until Dawn, it's still got like an overarching story that ultimately doesn't change all that much while you're playing it. But the choices you make kind of change the prologue, or change the epilogue, I should say. Where they're like I said, Vince can either take the buyout, and he ends up. Oh, where is he working at? Oh, yeah, he ends up working not in aeronautics. He gets an office job, or he can sue the airline and open up his own flying school. You know, Michelle can die. They can be separated. They can be married. You know, they can. There's a range with that. So I do think that it still has the same kind of feel as Until Dawn, where it's like most of the choices that you're making are to keep people alive. But at the same time, like for the actual gameplay portion of it, but for the story portion of it, that extends past it, it's like, okay, these change what happens to these people after all of this stuff happens. Which I think is a little bit, I think I would put this one above Until Dawn for that respect. I mean, for a lot of different elements, not just the story, but the unique art style, I think worked really well for them. The fact that it's multiplayer again, that you can get
Cool.
the Twitch integration is so fun because your chat can actually, so they can make choices and you can make a choice, but either the option with the most people voting for that is chosen, or if it's a tie, it flashes between them and randomly chooses. So sometimes if there's just like one person in my chat making a choice, we're dueling it out.
Yeah, that was the case with us for a while. I think it was
I
you
know
and
you
me.
kept choosing make dessert, and I'm like, no, we're fixing the air conditioner.
But another thing that's kind of nice is whoever's playing actually gets overrides. They get a certain number of overrides, and they're just like, no, you're trying to destroy me. I'm overriding this, and we're going here instead. But you can only do that a couple number of times before it's like, well, whatever happens. But overall, for like the part-time gamer aspect of this as well, the game itself doesn't take very long. I honestly have no excuse why. I do have an excuse. It was called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But for the normal person, yeah, well, that too. But for the normal person, it only takes the gameplay footage that I had that I was watching for a little while is only 5 hours long for the playthrough.
Yeah.
So it's a relatively quick game to get through all the way to the end. They give you a lot of off ramps. You have the two different books, but each of the books are broken up into chapters and different segments. So you can do one segment, because it does a flashback. Oh, I can take a break here and keep on going like that. So for that aspect, it is pretty part-time gamer friendly. And like I said, it's on Game Pass. So it's on Game Pass PC and console. So if you have either of those, I definitely think it's worth a shot.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a little harrowing because there is, and not so much triggered, but like if you get games like this, when you get into it, you have choices to make, but it all feels kind of like what if this happens? What if that happens? It's like, isn't that kind of the point? Like,
Yeah.
that's a safe space for that kind of crap where it's like, but for some people, I know a couple people who play games similar to this, or they play a lot of choose stuff and they freak out. And it's like, go back to Miss Pac-Man. Like, if it's too much for you, just, water it down, bring it back. On the other hand, I enjoyed it. Stuff like this, kind of the darker stuff, is a little like, unfortunately, my speed. But like I said, one of the biggest draws was just kind of the noir aspect of like these people get into a bad situation and make another situation for someone worse, and then it's kind of worse together. Yeah, I like my soap operas.
The one good thing too is that once you finish it, you can actually go back through the chapters and just go to make the other choice, so you can see the other options without replaying the entire game, which is nice for people that don't want to replay the game. Me, however, I have to replay the game because that's how I do those things. But but if that's not you.
Yeah, like that is one thing that I noticed as well, is like at the end of a certain segment, it'll actually give you the like a timeline view. It actually reminds me a lot of the timeline view from Detroit Become Human. Not quite as extensive, but similar kind of feel, where it's like, okay, you have this branch right here that makes this choice, and so on and so forth. So I do appreciate when games do that kind of stuff as well. And I believe I think that also tells you the percentage of people.
Yeah, every little choice, it gives you the percentage of people that did that as well. So, yeah.
And one thing that I do appreciate as well is the fact that when it is one of those major choices where it does create some kind of branch, even if that branch eventually comes back to where you were before, it gives you the warning. It's like, this is a crossroads choice. This will branch the story out. I do appreciate that they did that as well. But yeah, overall, this it's a very suspenseful game. There's ways of like you can play it much more like a visual novel by adjusting the difficulty of the QTEs and stuff like that. So it's more just watch it and make the choices, which is really nice. But you can also make it a little bit more intense by adding the timers, adding the QTEs, that kind of stuff, making it much more difficult to stir a bowl of pudding, which
accident. I was mad because I was like, I'm supposed to be packing right now.
Sorry, that just still amuses me. It just amuses me. We go through that whole thing.
Well, it's just there's some scenes in the game where you only can choose a certain number of the options given.
Yeah.
And you don't know how many you can choose.
Yeah.
Like when Jay is searching is one of them. That getting your apartment ready, and so it's like, I didn't know I only had this many options, and sure enough, I like make dessert, and then they're like, "Oh, your wife is home," and I'm like, I did nothing.
It's like I'm kind of wondering how bad of a situation you can make that, because you can fail, like you can like. There's like when you go to put the pictures away, there's an option to just like look at the pictures instead of packing them. And it's like, I know there's an option. I'm pretty sure there's an option to take a nap as well. So you literally could go through
I think there's even a QT for like the air conditioner too.
Yeah.
So you could probably mess that up. Like
it's like, well, I spent 6 hours and I did literally nothing. Good way to leave it. Yeah. Yeah. That's not too different than what I do too. Anyways, but yeah, the game is, especially like we said, especially if you have Game Pass, it's super accessible. Definitely worth a shot. Not a super long play to do it. I will eventually get back to it and actually like make my own playthrough Oh, it's still installed on Game Pass, so I can go back to it.
Stream
Uh,
it so I can
yeah,
mess with you.
Ooh,
that's not a bad idea. But anyway,
Ooh.
he said.
yeah. Oh, so yeah, it's definitely worth a shot. Oh, definitely, especially like with the multiplayer aspect of it too. That actually intrigues. That's one of the best parts of it, I think, is that multiplayer as well. All right. But with that, we still got a little bit of time, so we can do a little bit of our watercolor talk.
You get that thing I sent you?
Oh, Chipotle strikes again.
So we were going to talk about this last week, but obviously we didn't have a show last week, so decided to hold on to it anyway because it's somewhat relevant to relevant in general and relevant to what we're going to be talking about this next month too. So a couple of weeks ago, Xbox did an Xbox Developer Direct, and we're talking about 4 different games that are made by various Xbox studios. They're going to be released on Game Pass in the next couple months, or I think a couple months, whatever it is. So we have Ninja Gaiden, the next Ninja Gaiden 4, which is I know it's a thing. I know that it's supposed to be ridiculously difficult. The only other thing I know is that the original Xbox version of it made me rage quit before I even got to the first boss because the camera was garbage. And that is my only experience with the game. So I honestly do not care about it.
So this is going to be my Christmas present to you. I'll get you this. You're all
I mean,
over that.
if they fix the camera in 4 games, then yeah, I'm like, I can understand it being hard, but I don't
Yeah.
like, I read I like saw kinds of videos like this. You just got to do this kind of stuff to beat the first boss and everything. That's kind of the first like major filter. It's like, no, the final boss was the camera. It was awful. Anyway,
First, last, and total. Final.
yeah. And one that I actually probably the game well, actually we'll get into the game has the most interest in it. But I'm doing Doom Dark Ages, and which I've played the new first Doom. Yeah, Doom was it 2016? Yeah, Doom 2016. I have not played Doom Eternal yet. I think I still have that on my wish list. But yeah, they're going to be And I've seen it played and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, Doom
A game style.
That
Well, I think we'll get
Doom go way back. Before I discovered girls, it was like, what's this game on this floppy disk that's free? Turn down the X-Files so I can play.
What's this game that can now be played in a PDF? Anyway.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
like
me and Doom. Oh, yeah. When I saw this, I just went. I had one of those moments, like I was still watching Severance. Like I gotta sit down. Hang on, guys.
So during the overview of it, one thing that I think is really cool is how each of the games plays a little bit differently. Like they have a different emphasis, which I think is cool. The first Doom, 2016, said is run and gun. You're moving really fast. You're shooting while you're moving, all that stuff. The second game was jump and shoot. So you have a lot more verticality to it and everything like that, coming down on targets and everything like this. This one, they said, is stand your ground. So this one, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a departure from the last two, because of the fact that the last two focused on different kinds of movement. This one focuses much more on you have a shield, you're parrying, you're standing your ground, you're taking the hit and everything like that. But this is probably also the kind of style that I prefer. So
well, it's gonna be, for the old school. I mean, each one has had tweaks as far as movements and other things within each game. This is really the first one where it's like, if you're stationary, because most of the other ones, if you're stationary, you're done.
Oh, yeah.
This will be sounding like, I mean, looking at what I've seen of it, this is the first one where stationary or minimal movement functionality is probably going to be the thing that keeps you keeps you alive in the game.
Yeah.
And I think for some of the old school, I mean, not as old as me, but old school, where the movement makes the game, and it's like, well, not the only aspect, but sure. But yeah, from what I've seen of it so far, I've already counted my nickels. I can't wait to buy this damn thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it is it's supposed to be coming to Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC on May 15th of this year. And that's another thing that's interesting though, is this is from an Xbox game studio, and it's going to be released on the PlayStation 5. The same day as release. So, and also it is worth mentioning that actually, never mind. That was something else. Anyway, but yeah, the fact that they're branching out. Then there's another recent news story about how Forza Horizon 5 is going to be released on the Switch too.
So that
So yeah, Xbox is really starting to lean into what we were kind of thinking they would, where it's like, we don't care where you play the games, we just want you to play the games.
Yeah.
So they're really
Hey,
yeah.
finally.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping, with the a couple of weeks ago we had the subject of Square Enix before the release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that is like they were basically saying, we can't keep this exclusive anymore. It's like, it's not viable, and I'm hoping that's going to be the turning point for Sony, where it's like, maybe if we release this stuff on other things, we can make more money.
And it's crazy to think that memo is maybe finally getting to them after all this time.
Yeah.
Because even with the stuff they released that's theirs, there's so many games where it's like, well, we wish we could have that. We wish we could have that. And I mean, look at Nintendo back in the day. Like, third parties, as far as game makers and developers, like, help make that system and many other systems. So yeah, Sony's slow to get there, but hopefully
Yeah.
they will.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Square Enix was basically saying this, like, it implies that Rebirth and possibly Remake for Final Fantasy VII are going to be on Xbox at some point. It implies that the third part of the Final Fantasy Remake will be at least come to PC earlier than like a year later. Oh, anyway, but that's all tangential. Back to the Direct. Another game that they've been showing for a little while. They showed a little bit more footage of it. Is called South of Midnight. Which is,
I'm actually excited for this one. This is the
looks
one
pretty
game
cool.
on the list I'm excited for.
Yeah.
It's by like the same like developer as We Happy Few, and I
Mm.
personally liked We Happy Few. It was buggy like for a bit and everything like that, but I liked it and I liked
Yeah.
the art style, and so I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, and one thing that's actually interesting, if kind of coinciding with the game we were talking about earlier with As Dusk Falls, it has a different kind of animation style. It has almost it does. They have recently made it so that there's a setting that you can adjust for it, but its initial settings are very much like a very kind of choppy stop motion style animation to it. Gives it a really interesting look and feel to the world and the characters in it and everything. But like I said, they have recently made it a setting that you can adjust, because there were some people who didn't really like that. I mean, I personally don't care. It's not my game. So, but I mean, again, options are always good. This last one is actually probably, of the four, is probably the one I'm most interested in. It looks really cool at times. Claire Obscura Expedition 33. So that's going to be coming out shortly after my birthday, actually, April 24th. And it's a JRPG inspired role playing game, which is literally what RPG stands for. Anyways,
Got it.
yeah. But what's unique about it is, I think the presentation that they've shown of the combat is just ridiculous, because it is turn-based combat, but it has real-time elements to it. So like, for example, if you're being attacked, you can actually, it's almost not it's kind of like QTEs, I think, that you can like reduce the damage or you can parry it and stuff like that. To like, even though the attack itself is a turn-based attack, it's a really interesting mix, and the way that they present it is really flashy and looks really cool. We did get a little bit more of an idea of like what this name actually represents. That's a really weird thing where like this, I don't even remember what it was, but this either person or tree or whatever it was has a number on it, and every year the number gets lower, and everyone who's older than that number just disappears, and they're down to 33. So they basically, so they have like a year to figure out what's causing this and stop it from happening. So that's why it's Expedition 33, because this is they're on the 33 on it. But that was the one I'm probably the most excited for of these four. And Ninja Gaiden can kick rocks. Anyway.
I didn't realize they were still making those. Like, that's one of those, I mean, I will always love Street Fighter, but when I found out not that long ago there was a sixth one, I'm like, oh, you're still going.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you. And then this, like, I remember playing like the arcade Ninja Gaiden, and then as well as like some of the home versions. And that was, I'm not going to say how many years ago that was, but it was many, maybe even decades. Now it's like, hey, there's a fourth one. I'm like, oh, there is. Good for you.
Yeah.
You're doing stuff. Yeah. I don't know who the hell wants this thing, but you think someone does?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, Doom, on the other hand,
Yeah. Doom, like the fact that they are going a more stand your ground tanky style, I think it's more my play style. So I actually kind of interested in that as well.
Yes.
So
and an automated saw blade shield.
Yeah. And it's like there's a mech
Bring
sequence
that home
too.
to mama and I'm packing groceries.
Yeah, there's a mech sequence you can go into as well, which that looked pretty cool. And I'm a sucker for mechs in general. So, but yeah, so that was a couple weeks ago. I'll just kind of I posted a link in our show notes in our chat as well that'll show you the behind the scenes footage and stuff like that they had for the developer direct, giving you an idea of what kind of stuff is happening in those games. Yeah, so I think that's about it for our show. So everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please join us next week. We're going to be starting our new theme, and technically this game actually fits into both last month's and this month's theme that we're going to be talking about Game Pass games. Specifically, we're going to be talking about games that I've researched, looked at. They're available on PC and console. So wherever you have Game Pass, you have access to these games we're going to be talking about this next month, including the one that we actually talked about today. Yeah, and next week we're going to be starting it off with Road 96, which is
Oh, 96. Sorry,
Yes.
I got so excited. Oh
And
my
actually-
god.
and actually watching your streams is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. Oh, because that is another one that I want to try out as well.
Okay, no, seriously, it's a great game. I play it all the time. Like
Yeah.
I almost had a perfect run. Next
Yeah.
run through, I won't get arrested.
But yeah, that's the one thing that's kind of unique about it is it's like a weird mix of Choices Matters and roguelike. Oh, so it's a very interesting game, and it's on Game
And
Pass.
it has a prequel.
Yeah. Although I don't think the prequel is on Game Pass. But I'm pretty sure it's on Steam. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Road 96 next week for our technically first game of this Game Pass games theme. There's a lot of games in that sentence. Anyways, everyone, thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard and like to help us out, a few ways you can do that is by giving us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and YouTube channels for our live recordings Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time for our tech check and pre-show, or you can become one of our patrons. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel for all of our alerts and conversations and usually weird memes from Theo. You can find the show.
What I do.
Yeah. You can find the show and links to everything around it using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. That'll take you to my website, caffeineinducedproductions.com. And the reason why I made that short link is because I still mess up how to spell caffeine. I
With a K.
I consume it and spell it all the time, and half the time it's wrong. Anyway, you can find Ember's work over at 9of12.com, NINEOF12.com. And check out Tipple Theory, because they're doing a season for non-alcoholic drinks this season. So
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Theo, where can people find you? Or on the internet, preferably.
Well, I'm back on Swell.
Okay.
I've got 2 little shorts going up tomorrow, if all goes well. And then I got a channel now for my new podcast coming up, which I couldn't think of a good title, so I went with, and then there was this one time. And so
That's on brand.
And I really fret over titles because I'm trying to be clever and stuff like that. And then I think about like how I talk, especially like with military buddies. So I just went with that. It works. It fits me so well. And then also on my channel in between, I'm unfortunately addicted to this show. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It's called Severance. The last time I was addicted to a show like this, it was called Lost. The last time I was addicted to something like this, I think I bought it on a street corner in Jacksonville. But the first episode of the new podcast goes up on Thursday.
Cool.
And Rabbit in Red should be back this week, Friday.
Cool. And Jess, where can people find you?
People can find me everywhere. So I do a lot of things. So let me just go through them. So I'm a co-host on a podcast, 18 plus. That's important to know. We just won Outstanding Adult Series from the Canadian Podcast Awards because we are Canadian. So that's pretty cool. We're Opinionated Lushes. We drink and talk about society and culture because if you can't cry about it, laugh. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. Just search Opinionated Lushes or go to our website, opinionatedlushes.com. I also do music under my name, Jessica Hart, H-A-R-T. So you search Jessica Hart wherever you are listening to music, and I pop right up and I'm there. And I do plan on releasing an EP this year, so feel free to follow me so that you can get all of that.
Nice.
And I stream as well, which we talked about at Variety Jess on Twitch. So I plan on streaming more this year. Knock on wood, because my schedule is always up in the air. So I'm always like, I'm gonna stream, and then I'm like, oh no, something happened because I also have children and
that's
responsibilities.
That's pretty much my thought process as well. It's like, man, I could really stream tonight, but I have kids.
Kids, don't recommend them. 0 out of 10.
They're pretty cool, but at the same time, it's like, I like to do things sometimes. But anyway. All right, everyone. Until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers clocking out.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.